the whole time I keep being like, well, where are we going to go home to though? Because it's not like we're going home to Texas. And then it was, okay, we're going to DC, but to where? To a hotel? Yes, that's what we did. We went to DC and we moved in a hotel. Now I kept thinking it was going to be like a week. And then it was 2 weeks. And then it was 3 weeks. And then it was 4 weeks. And they were the longest 4 weeks of my entire life. Like I kept having to go back down to the lobby and be like, can we extend our stay for a few more days? You know, it's getting embarrassing, honestly. We could have been living under a bridge. So, I mean, we were legitimately homeless. I mean, living out of suitcases, everything we owned was in a van. But we had a roof over our heads. I mean, we were in a hotel. Like, what if I had been on the street with 3 kids? You know, so I guess I should not whine and complain, but trying to keep kids entertained for a month in a hotel is really hard for a number of reasons. And I mean, do I really need to explain to you how hard it is? But I will.
Hi. Wow. Was that like the weirdest radio silence of all time? And were you wondering if I had died? As you can see, I'm still alive. I have not died. But there were times over the summer when I was like, just come back, Jesus. That's too hard. I am alive and my husband's alive and my children are alive and we now have a roof over our heads. So all things considered, it could have been so much worse. And even as I go back to tell you this, you know, it's really interesting, the human mind, how we can go through something that's so physically and emotionally and spiritually draining. And we think, I'll never forget how bad this felt. I'll never get over how hard this was. And then on the other side of it, it's really hard to grasp how bad that was. And this is kind of like that for me, because as I'm retelling this to you now, it feels like, well, is it a little bit babyish of me to continue to whine about this summer? But I also feel like you guys want to know where I went. And so I do want to explain where I went and why I felt so emotionally tapped out that I could not make content. And I even stopped opening my YouTube app and YouTube Studio and answering comments because I couldn't even bear to explain to you over and over and over to every comment where I'd been, what was happening, because honestly, I didn't even know what was happening. I didn't know what was going on. Every single thing that had felt safe to me before just was slipping away from me. Now, my marriage didn't implode and my kids are alive. So again, many, many good things about my life were intact, but there were so many other question marks and big question marks that it just felt like, what is happening to my life? Like I had such a good life and now suddenly like, I don't know where I'm living. I don't know what tomorrow is going to be. Do I have a job anymore? Is God asking me to give up YouTube? Like what is happening with my life and what is going on with my kids' school? It was like all of these questions. So essentially what happened was, you guys know that we were moving from Dallas to DC. My husband works for the Department of Homeland Security. And I'd known for many years that we would eventually be moving to Washington, DC.
So we knew that we were going to have to move because of my husband's job. And we knew we were going to be moving to DC. I'd known this for years and years. I knew that our time in Dallas would eventually come to an end. But when it was time to move to Washington, there was a part of me that really struggled with that, which was unusual for me because usually we moved a lot. I've moved a lot in my life before I met my husband. Then when I met him being in the military, we've moved to Europe. We've lived all over the States. We've lived a lot of places, and moving always felt to me like an adventure, like a journey I wanted to go on, and I wanted to see kind of like how I would do in another atmosphere and what, it just was never scary. And for some reason, this particular move felt scary to me. And maybe that's why I reacted so negatively to so many of the things that happened on this move. But I think empirically, anybody, even a person who felt positively about moving to Washington, DC, would not have loved the arrival that we had. So, it's time to move. We sell the house. We go to Alabama while my husband goes ahead and goes to DC. He had some training to do for like 2 weeks. And while he was up there, he was going to keep looking for a house because to this point, at the beginning of, or I guess end of June, we still hadn't found a house. We'd gone on a house hunting trip. We'd even been looking for houses since the beginning of the year, knowing we're going to move. But I've come to find out that a lot of people, when they have to move to the DC area, will buy a house sight unseen. And I was never comfortable with that. Now, I think if you have enough money, then you can pretty much feel comfortable buying sight unseen, because you don't have to worry about necessarily buying a money pit, because you can afford to buy something that's really nice. Although being here, I've realized maybe that's not even true either, because I've seen some $1 million homes and been like, what is happening here? Why is it so junky? And I think that's the thing that makes DC so difficult, like for a plethora of reasons, but in specifically talking about the housing situation, everything is ridiculously expensive. It's like an alternate universe when it comes to pricing. And then what you're getting for your money is not that great. But then, and this is everybody's problem in America right now, not just in DC, but the interest rate is so extreme that you're looking at borrowing more money than you ever thought imaginable. Then you're looking at an interest rate that wants to like destroy you. And then you're looking at what your money's buying, and nowhere else in the country is your money buying so little. And so it's just been, it was extremely difficult to find a house. And up until that point, I will say too that I didn't really want to move to DC, but it's more like I'm old and tired and didn't want to move. It wasn't necessarily like I was scared I wasn't going to find somewhere to live. Now, had I known the future, I might have spent more time in fear. I think that's why sometimes God doesn't tell us the future, because if we did, we'd just roll over and die right then. The housing market was terrible, but I kept thinking that, well, when we're actually physically there, we'll find something instantaneously. I don't know why I thought that, because I'm looking on Zillow, I'm looking in all the places, I'm not seeing anything. Did I think that I would arrive and they'd be like, now these are the secret houses that are really on the market? Anyway, my husband had to go up to DC for work. So while I'm in Alabama, I'm thinking, he's gonna find us a home while he's up there. It's all gonna come together. It didn't all just come together. Honestly, most of the time he had to be working. So then in the few hours that he had when he was off, what was he gonna go see? The nothing that's there? So it wasn't like the dream come true that I thought it was gonna be. He'd go up there while he's working, stumble on the perfect house, and we'd move. And I think the other thing too is he actually did see some great houses while he was up here. But again, we're talking about more money than either he or I had ever expected to spend on a house. It's really hard to make that quick decision. Some people too are built to make quick decisions, but we're not. And so this was not the market to be hesitant. This is not the market where people who are afraid of risk should be meandering, because this is not for the faint of heart, we learned real quick. So anyway, didn't find our home while he was there. But again, I kept thinking, but somehow it's all gonna come together. Although I will say that when he came back from the trip and hadn't found anything, the fear began to gnaw at my heart. And then, we went down to the beach because that had been planned, but we always go to the beach every year. Being from Alabama, that's just what you do. And this was the first year where I just wasn't loving it. Mostly because I was we're spending so much money on this vacation, but we also don't know where we're gonna live, and we might wanna be saving our little pennies. That was probably a good thought to have. But anyway, we planned it, we were gonna go. So we go on the vacation, but the whole time I keep being like, well, where are we gonna go home to though? Because it's not like we're going home to Texas. That home doesn't exist anymore for us. It's probably already been torn down, actually. And then it was, okay, we're going to DC, but to where? To a hotel? Yes, that's what we did. We went to DC and we moved in a hotel. Now I kept thinking it was gonna be a week. And then it was 2 weeks. And then it was 3 weeks. And then it was 4 weeks. And they were the longest 4 weeks of my entire life. It seemed like, and I think it felt really long too, because I didn't know when it was gonna end. I kept having to go back down to the lobby and be like, can we extend our stay for a few more days? And it was getting embarrassing, honestly. And there was 1 week in there where we could not extend our stay. And there are worse things. We could have been living under a bridge. So, we were legitimately homeless. Living out of suitcases, everything we owned was in a van. But we had a roof over our heads. We were in a hotel. What if I had been on the street with 3 kids? So I guess I should not whine and complain, but trying to keep kids entertained for a month in a hotel is really hard for a number of reasons. And do I really need to explain to you how hard it is? But I will. I have 3 kids, 11 and under. And, they're feeling untethered, they're feeling insecure, they're feeling unsure. I'm feeling like a bad mom because I can't tell them what tomorrow's going to bring. I can't promise them when we're moving in. I can't tell them anything. And I think that that was one of the things that was draining about this too, is that I felt like I was failing them. I was failing them because I needed to be their safety net, but like I wasn't bringing safety to them. You know, I'd moved them from the place that they had known the longest of their lives, away from all their friends, away from the security of the school that they had known, to an unknown city, to an unknown location, to a purgatory that seemed to extend for infinity. I mean, there was nothing I could be like, okay, we've got this many more days that, you know, and then we can move out of the hotel, you know? And then, so their little hearts were feeling very insecure, which was coming out in really negative ways for them. You know, it's like they were just picking on each other constantly and wanting to, you know, in a hotel, there's like, what are you going to do in a hotel room? Watch TV? Well, no, you're not going to. We're not going to spend our entire summer watching cable in the hotel room. Like, this is already depressing enough. You know, make that not be our reality. So, but you got to entertain kids. It's like, okay, like, you know, we went and bought a bunch of board games, and, you know, I bought a bunch of Play-Doh, and, you know, bought a bunch of coloring books. But, you know, I've got 2 little boys. They were wanting to entertain themselves by jumping off the bed and brawling on the floor and leaping and lurching. I didn't raise my kids in a barn, but this summer you would have thought I had, because they were just stressed out. They were stressed out, they were scared, and it was coming out in really wild and obnoxious ways. And I'm not the sort of parent that's like, we all just need to be sitting around knitting quietly. I mean, I know boys are going to be boys, but I'm talking about their wrestling and their like fighting with each other had taken like new heights. And it could just be too that I noticed it more because we were in a very confined space with neighbors all around. It was a lot to keep them quiet. So then, as a response to being like, okay, well, we can't be in the hotel room all the time, you know, we'll go do things, but this is a very expensive city. I'm telling you, I was bleeding money out at an ungodly rate trying to find things for us to do. And yeah, there's a lot of free things you can do in DC, but there's a lot of things that are not free. And just being alive is not free here. I mean, you walk out the door and you're like, well, I spent another $300 just like being out on the street, you know? Everything is so expensive. Everything. And when we go out to eat, I mean, it's not like everyone's getting their own thing. I'm like, you're going to share with me, you're going to share with him. I mean, but it's still unbelievably expensive to be alive in this city. And you guys know, you're all living the same life I'm living in your expensive cities. You know what? Everything is astronomically expensive right now, but particularly in DC, I guess everybody has just got diamond shoes and their wallets are full of 50s or something, because what is happening here in the city? This one made for the Poe people, I'll tell you that much. All right, so anyway, the stay is extending and extending and extending, and we don't know what's going to be. We're trying to find a house, but there's nothing to find. We kept thinking we wanted to rent, but you get this idea that like tomorrow we'll see it. Tomorrow it'll come on the market. We just got to wait till this weekend. Surely they'll list something. So you keep not wanting to get into a lease lest your dream home come on the market and then, oh no, I'm tied down, right? But see, I was pushing for a long time. I was like, hey, we got to rent. Like, this is just not happening for us. I don't even care anymore. School's starting. And this was the other thing that, you know, to just compound all of the anxiety of living in a hotel with 3 small kids and trying to keep them entertained all summer. Then we had a massive crisis with their school. So I was supposed to be teaching at their new school, but I hadn't actually been assigned a job yet. That was really stressful, but I was willing to just, you know, bear with it. Small school, whatever. But I did kind of want to know what job I was going to have. And we had settled on the idea that I was going to be teaching just a couple of hours a week. I was going to be teaching logic, and I was really good with that because I really wanted to invest way more time on the YouTube channel. That's really where my heart was. You know, I was ready to, I've been teaching for years and years. YouTube was never something I thought I would necessarily be successful at. It was just something I wanted to try. And then it was way more successful than I thought it would be very quickly. And I really wanted to pour in more time on that. So when I was offered just a couple of hours a week to teach at this new school, I was really okay with that. In fact, I was more than okay with it. I was overjoyed, honestly, to be able to shift like my career. But while we were staying at the hotel from hell, because when I say this, you guys, I mean, it was extended stay hotel to some extent. I mean, you know, we had a little kitchenette and the kids all shared a giant king bed. And then my husband and I, we were sleeping on a pull-out couch, but it wasn't like even a full bed pull-out. It was like literally a cot that pulled out. So he and I are like sleeping back to back all night, like, and rickety as all get out. Anyway, so while we're living this hellacious existence that's extending into the future unlimitedly, I get a call from the school saying, hey, actually, we need you to teach fourth grade because our fourth grade teacher just quit. And we're going to need you to take that role if you want to. Well, my son's going into fourth grade. No teacher, you say. What? This wasn't good news. It wasn't good news at all, mostly because I've never taught fourth grade. And so that was concerning. But I also know that I'm a good teacher. If I can say that without sounding braggy, I feel confident with a classroom full of kids. And so I thought, well, who are they going to get at this late date? School's starting in like literally 3 weeks. So I need to really wrestle with this idea. Like, do I want to do this or not? But this is the conundrum, folks. If I take that job as a full-time fourth grade teacher there all day long, what then will come of this vanity project on the side, this YouTube? And then now I've got the house dilemma. What's going on with the house? The school is having some dilemmas. Some extreme administrative issues were going on that was causing a bit of an implosion there. Then we've got this compounding situation of now I've got spiritual questions because I'm like, okay, Lord, you're asking me to go be a teacher. It would seem that that's what you've put on my plate suddenly, and I haven't asked for it. And you know that secretly what I really wanted to do was pour in everything to building the YouTube channel. But ultimately, that is a vanity project. I mean, ultimately, that's what it is. Because I want to go sit for an hour and talk about like fluff and foolishness. You know, the royal family, really? And so, you know, this might sound stupid, but I'll just put it all out there. Every single time I sit down to film, I will pray and I will ask God, bless what comes out of my mouth. Make me articulate, make me remember the humanity of the people I'm talking about. But if it's not glorifying and honoring to you, then take it away. I prayed that every time I made a video. Take it away, take it away, take it away if it's not your will. And it seemed like it was going fine. And then suddenly he was asking me not to do it. And I, in my pride and vanity, had thought, it'll never bother me if I don't get to do this. Whatever. And then when he was asking me not to do it, I was crushed because I thought, but I've worked so hard, and I have worked hard. One episode of this show, this might seem, but this probably highlights how inefficient I am at editing and getting things together, but one episode would take me 6 hours to get out. If you included all of the time that it took to read, make notes, film, edit, clip, you know, all these things. I mean, half the time, I mean, the editing wasn't that great, but it took me a long time. And so, you know, you put out 3 episodes a week and you're putting out clips for those episodes, it was consuming all of my time. And I knew that if I took this job as fourth grade teacher, I could not do what I had wanted to do. I wanted to keep doing the YouTube channel. That's what I wanted to do. But I think teaching is really a holy profession. And I don't think that that's a hyperbolic thing to say. I think teaching is one of the holiest vocations that we can take on in life. Because we're being asked to shepherd the sacred souls of children in a really profound way. We're teaching them truth. We're teaching them values. And not in an ideological sense, but just in the most fundamental sense. How do you be a citizen in this world in the appropriate way? And these are all of the things, like just in all the basic subjects. You know, I'm not talking about anything crazy. I'm just talking about, like, am I stewarding history in a truthful way? Am I teaching you how to write in a way that is good, true, and beautiful? Am I teaching you what good literature looks like? Are you learning how to analyze human nature through good books? Like, I think that teaching is a holy profession. And yet, I found that when I was asked to serve full time, I didn't want to do it. There was just a part of me that thought, no, but I really wanted to see if I could make YouTube really come off the ground. You know, I really wanted to investigate YouTube. And when I put it like side by side, I thought, but what can I stand before God and be proud that I did with my time? When I stand before God at the end of time and have to say to him, well, you gave me a life and I spent it making YouTube videos, or can I stand in front of him and say, I made much of the opportunities you gave me with the people in the real world, and I obeyed you and I did what you asked me to do, and I was the best teacher I could be. I know which one I would want to say, but one is a lot harder than the other, you know? Teaching's hard. It's hard it's hard not just because of the student relationships, but also with the family relationships. If you're going to do that job well and in an undistracted way, you're serving at the highest capacity a human can serve. So there was just a lot, I feel like, that was going on with me. Emotionally, I didn't know what was happening. Just physically, like, where were we going to land as a family? Where was our home? The school was having a lot of problems that we hadn't anticipated. And then spiritually, it just felt like God was asking me to choose a higher thing. And the selfishness of my heart didn't want to choose that. So there was just like a lot going on that making content hard to do. Also, like, I don't know how to film videos in a room where like my kids are right there. Like, it would be very poor quality with them jumping up and down on the bed, wrestling each other, almost to the death. So content just had to be like the last thing I thought about. And then, like I said, I was just so emotionally tapped out. I just couldn't even begin to open the app and start talking about where I was and what was happening, because I didn't really know what to tell you. I don't know what's happening. Part of the time we were staying in Virginia, and part of the time we were, in a hotel in Maryland, because the Virginia hotel kicked us out. Not kicked us out, but like, they couldn't extend our stay anymore. So we're trying to find another hotel somewhere else. And it was just, we were all over the place. We're living out of our van. It was just a very long summer. Then, my husband's job, I'm talking crazy hours. He gets a schedule for the following week every Wednesday. And then those days can have him working day and night, different times every day of the following week. So it's almost like, I'm married, but I'm also like, I cannot rely on my partner in any way. Not that, he would love to be someone I could rely on, but it's up to me to manage the emotions of our kids, manage what we're doing every day, manage their needs, their emotional needs, their spiritual needs, their physical needs. And it just was, I was tapped out. I know I keep saying that, but that is like, this summer was the summer in which I felt wrung out on every single level. So this is essentially what I want to come to you and say. When it comes to the YouTube channel, I'm going to have to dial it back big time. No, it's not what I want, but I think it's what God's asking me to do right now. And if I cannot obey him in the small things he asks, how can he ever ask more of me if I refuse to do what he asks because I want to keep doing my vanity project? And what he's asking me to do is something that I don't know how to do. I don't know. This is a curriculum I don't know. This is a job I found out about 3.5 weeks ago. This is a pace that I need to learn. It's a culture of a new school that I don't know. So there's a lot of unknowns, and I want to do a exceptional job at that. And I don't want my attention be divided. But with that being said, I have worked really hard to build YouTube. And I think that there is nothing wrong with discussing pop culture and discussing books and discussing them in the truest way and having a good laugh over it. There's no sin in it. But where are my first fruits going? If I've been asked to give God the first fruits of my labor, then it has to go to the holy thing. And if there's time left over, do the silly thing. So on the weekends, you can expect content from me. We can't go through both books just because I think that that's not a pace I can keep up. And I don't want to overpromise. I've seen what happens when I promise, and I don't know the future. Clearly, I make my plans, but God guides my steps. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Trader King. We'll be doing chapters on the weekend. And that's the book I'm going to focus on. So I'm embarrassed by how many promises I made that I'm now like, can't keep them. Not very many people were watching the book about Hunter S. Thompson. It just wasn't the flavor we were looking for. I know, I'm not saying there was nobody who was watching it, but it just wasn't, it wasn't hitting a chord. And if I have to choose between finishing that book or doing something that the majority of people would appreciate on the channel, I'm going to choose the book that the majority of people would appreciate. So we're going to do Trader King. And then once that book's over, if we have an appetite for the RFK book, we'll do that one. If we want to continue with Royal, we will. But I think it's going to be step by step for me because I see what happens when I decide to say what's going to happen. So I'm not even going to say that anymore. My goal is to do at least one episode on the weekends. I'd love to be able to do 2. I'd love, like, in a perfect world, it'd be great to do one on Sunday, one on Wednesday. That would be great. But I also just know that it's going to take me a few weeks to learn my new schedule, learn my new routines. But I think I can commit to one episode on the weekends. That doesn't seem like that's undoable. So I'm going to commit to that. So be looking out for that next episode. And I do have to say that though I haven't been making videos, it doesn't mean I haven't been reading the book. What is going on with David and Wallace Simpson? Those people are crazy. And I thought that Harry and Meghan were insane. No. I mean, they are insane, but they're almost like, oh, look how cute and stupid they are. Wallace Simpson is diabolical, and David is also diabolical, but also just incredibly and very frighteningly emotionally irregulated. His obsession with Wallace Simpson is frightening. Like when I was reading about some of the things he was doing, I was like, whoa, man, you were really messed. Like something was not okay with you. Like something is inexplicably incorrectly wired in your heart and mind and soul. But then also their connection to the Nazis, whoa, straight out the gate. I mean, I was expecting to like have to read a couple of chapters, like maybe even halfway through the book, then we'd start talking about it. No. Like second chapter, I was like, what is happening with them and the Nazis? And I knew there was a connection, but I just didn't realize how deep and profound it was. I mean, of course I knew that they had actually met Hitler, but I didn't realize just how early on in the relationship, even before they were married, how in the back pocket of Hitler they were. Shocking. But the other thing too that's really shocking is how, like, what poor manners the Duke had. Exceptionally ill-mannered and very socially inept. It's really surprising to me that a member of the royal family could be so rude. The way that he would treat people who were hosting him, I'm talking about behavior that was so shocking that I had to reread several passages just to make sure I understood what I just read. How could he be this rude? How could he be this self-consumed and narcissistic? I was like, surely I misread that. He didn't really do that. How have I not heard about this before? So anyway, it promises to be juicy details about those two. Anyway, like I said, we're going to focus on the weekends, and that's what I know I can promise you. And then hopefully as the year goes on, we can do a few more, holidays, vacations, things like that, maybe increase. But I just want to be really careful of what I promise, since who knows what could happen. Certainly not me. It was a wild summer. But you know what? I'm not the only one who had a wild summer. Do you have a bad summer? Do you have a crazy summer? Please tell me in the comments what happened so that I can feel less bad about mine. I was texting friends and being like, please tell me about the drama in your life so I don't continue to believe I'm the only one having a bad time. My friends delivered. Can you deliver? Please tell me. To entertain us all with what happened. What's the worst thing that happened to you this summer? And then if you want to tell us the best thing that happened to you, the best thing that happened to me was we finally decided to rent and stop looking around for a house that was going to come on the market that really doesn't exist. So anyway, it's been so good catching up with you. Please tell me in the comments about your summer, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.